Gas prices continue to rise across the country as officials respond to concerns among Canadian consumers. Nova Scotia Premier Tim Houston is expressing concerns about large gas price increases in his province, which are up about 30 cents in the last week. He says the province is looking at removing taxes placed on gasoline, which would be similar to a move announced on Monday by Alberta Premier Jason Kenney. He said he is suspending a 13-cent per litre provincial gas tax as of April 1st. Gas price hikes can also be seen in other provinces, and in some cases, prices are hitting record levels. This comes as analysts warn that further increases lie ahead, which is prompting questions about whether other provinces should consider removing their gas taxes. But one expert says that is easier said than done. Well, joining us now to give us a deeper insight into this is Mr. Constantine Passaris, professor of economics at the University of New Brunswick in Fredericton. Professor, welcome to Forum Daily.
Hello, Mina. How are you?
I'm doing great, sir. Now, let's start with a brief overview of what gas taxes look like across the country.
Well, they're pretty high, and they're certainly taking a bite out of consumers' budget because the price of gasoline is going way up very quickly so that people don't have time to adjust to those new higher costs.
A lot of our viewers can relate to that, sir. Now, what do we know so far about what these gas taxes are used for on the provincial and federal level?
Well, they're used as a part of an intake in terms of meeting the expenses that governments have. And they're a consumer tax. And like the GST, provincial and the federal governments love those kind of taxes because they keep going up as people spend more money.
So how reliant are provincial and federal governments in terms of needing the revenue from these gas taxes?
I think they're very reliant on them, and particularly when people say reduce taxes so that we can afford to fill up our tanks with our cars. Governments do have expenses, and they need the additional income in order to meet those higher costs of operating the government. So it's a catch-22.
Definitely. Now, meanwhile, there are calls to scrap or suspend provincial gas taxes, just like in Alberta. But how realistic of a move is this for other provinces?
It's very realistic for Alberta because they're on the intake of higher prices of gasoline because they're the leading province for producing gasoline in Canada. Other provinces, particularly those in the Atlantic region, are going to be hard-pressed to reduce or even remove those taxes because they're becoming even more dependent on them as gasoline prices increase.
All right, Professor, well, taking that into consideration, what are some realistic steps that officials can take to potentially ease the burden of these rising prices for Canadian consumers?
I think because of the tremendous impact that this is going to have on the whole population, governments have a moral responsibility to look at the marginalized and people with low incomes and provide them some direct assistance. I would prefer that this be done on a direct individual basis rather than an umbrella basis where all consumers are impacted. The vulnerable and the marginalized communities are in need of more support than people who can adjust their budgets and make through those challenging weeks and perhaps even months ahead.
All right, Professor. Well, in terms of the wider impact of these gas taxes, are we likely to see further inflation in the cost of other products and services that we buy?
Absolutely. This is an excellent question because the increase in gasoline prices impacts almost every product and service that we buy. So the ripple effect from this increase in gasoline prices is going to be felt in almost everything that we buy, from food to produce to vegetables to transportation to services to government services, and everything will be impacted by that cost.
I'm sure our Canadian consumers are not going to be happy about that, sir. Well, we are out of time for this interview, but thank you so much for giving us your time today on Forum Daily, Professor.
You're very welcome.